Live streamers, welcome in. Little bonus afternoon edition here. Preston Thorne will jump on.
You're on 5, right?
Yep, 5 is correct, sir. We'll get the audio from the show going. Thursday lunch crowd. Greetings. Hope it's going well for you. Digestion's always a little tricky. I think I'm going with corn chips, guacamole, and salsa right now. What about you, Patrick? I can imagine. Where's your meal schedule these days? What are you coming off of?
I usually eat lunch and then dinner at like 9 p.m. I eat at I was for a while only eating and doing like sort of
intermittent fasting where I only eat between like 4 a.m. and or 9 p.m. and 4 a.m.
Right.
I eat like a really late dinner and a really early breakfast and just go the whole day. But the lunch deal kind of throws that off a little bit. So I'm kind of eating 3 square meals just a couple hours later than they're supposed to be. So like a 10:30 breakfast.
Okay, that's Patrick Perrette there. I'm Tim Hill. It takes 2 of us to help fill in for Pearson Fowler. Preston Thorne is used to this schedule. He's the guy that holds this hour down. So you're on the regular 3 square meals a day, usual old boring breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Is that right, sir?
Just though, because I'm usually not hungry. I'm rushing around. So I usually just do like some water or tea or something in the morning. But lunch and dinner for sure.
Smart move. I don't know why I brought that up. It's just that lunch hour deal. That's odd for me being a morning show guy. This morning, that's what it was. We were talking about microwave bacon for some reason.
I heard this conversation.
We had so much fun with that. The microwave bacon sports analogies had a blast. Microwave bacon is like the best one was being on the 1 yard line in the Super Bowl and not handing the ball off to Marshawn Lloyd. I thought that was the best one. Marshawn Lynch. Sorry.
That's going to happen.
I've been avoiding the Lloyd and the Lynch. Yeah. I've just been going Lloyd for so long now. I probably said it on the morning show too and didn't even correct myself. Speaking of Gamecock football, though, accidentally there. I wasn't able to watch CBS this morning while doing the morning show here on 107.5 The Game, but I did just retweet the story, the piece that they ran this morning on that show about Hayden Hurst. And it's Hayden Hurst writing a letter to himself, to his younger self. So basically, I think 10 years ago is how he put it. And it's really well done. I don't think it's anything new necessarily that we haven't heard about his story. If you followed it, the rise to kind of fame in baseball, and ended up being one of the best high school pitchers in the country when he was down in Florida and in the Jacksonville area. Thought he was going to be a second round pick, ended up being a 17th round pick, but got paid second round money. So played minor league baseball, developed the yips, and went into a deep depression. In that time is when he got out of baseball, came to South Carolina to walk on to play football. I think largely because of his relationship with Perry Orth is how he got to Columbia. And then while in Columbia, while trying to become a football player, still in that dark place, and we didn't know it at the time, but it has been well publicized since that during his time in Columbia early on tried to commit suicide. Fortunately, a friend that was in nursing school at the time, he called and they were able to get him to the hospital, and a psychiatric evaluation followed, and he was able to bounce back from it, obviously turn his life around into a first-round draft pick in the NFL, started with Baltimore Ravens, now with the Atlanta Falcons, and has a foundation set up with his mom. They run that and now have raised more than, they've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars, I should say, for mental health awareness, and clearly turning a bad situation into a good one and doing some good in the world. And I think we've all applauded Hayden Hurst for taking this thing on and the way he's done it. Preston, I think this is the 21st century version of being tough now, isn't it? I think it's morphed in our lifetimes, where growing up, I thought it was Dick Butkus, right? Being the tough guy, not saying much. Maybe you lose a tooth or two. Maybe you play with a broken limb. That's what a tough guy is. I feel like now the perception has changed for the better, for the healthier, that True Toughness is doing something like Hayden Hurst does in being kind of publicly vulnerable and expressing feelings that are not easy to express, and putting those out there for the benefit of everyone else, while it can be personally tough.
Yeah, it's really amazing that we've sort of seen this shift in culture, and it's really appreciated that athletes feel like they're able to share this information about themselves, and that the public accepts this. Because the first time I saw Hayden Hurst on the field, I was like, who is that dude? He looked like Thor or Superman out there, even amongst Division I athletes. And that's how we tend to perceive the way athletes look, and that's all we kind of get to know them as. But then when you hear that, oh, these athletes struggle with some of the same things that every other quote-unquote regular person struggles with, it really just brings it whole and makes this idea that all of us, regardless of our talent, skills, position in life, all of us sort of deal with a lot of the same issues. And I think that's what makes the concept of mental health such a universal idea, because we all have struggles, we all have stress, we all have traumas, we all have things that we deal with. And if we can all get to the point where we can recognize these issues in each other, I think we would probably have a little bit more of a kind and empathetic world. But it's definitely great when anybody uses their platform, but especially somebody like Hayden that can use his platform for good.
And especially football, because football has always been that like macho, don't complain about everything. If you broke your arm, just get out there, wrap it up and play another snap. Don't complain, just 2-a-days, everything, like just the ultimate like tough guy macho sport. So for that to be changing in the football culture, I think it's big too.
And South Carolina football might be the epicenter of this from a college football perspective, because of Ryan Helinski and Helinski's Hope and all the publicity that was generated from that. And from, obviously, the Helinski family formed that foundation after the suicide of their middle son, Tyler, a former Washington State quarterback, and did a ton of work here in our community when they moved from California to Columbia. And I think we're all pretty familiar with the Ryan Helinski story. So from a mental health / football standpoint, I feel like South Carolina fans might be as educated or as exposed to that as any out there. And I think that can only be a good thing in a lot of different ways. So I encourage you to go watch that story if you haven't. It's about 7 minutes or so, 6.5 minutes. I retweeted it at Tim Hill 1075 if you haven't checked that out. Even knowing the story, seeing the images and hearing Hayden Hurst, he reads the letter to himself as kind of the narration of this story, is a powerful thing, and cements to me just how important it is to kind of check on everybody. Preston, with your former teammates, or if you can remember all the struggles that you guys go through as a group, just as football players, all the demands on your time and family issues and all that combined with the pressures of playing big time Division I college football. I think that's just with that environment. It reminds me of, how you create diamonds with the pressure and the whole thing. And I think that's automatically, inherently, just because of the way it's set up, it breeds a certain type of camaraderie and creates bonds that can never be broken in a lot of ways. I think with the exposure we have to the Hayden Hurst and Ryan Helinski story, the Helinski family story, I think, do you find that those relationships change at all from back in your day, 20-ish years ago now, that you guys might relate in a different way, or is it still pretty much how it was and there are just certain areas that you don't get into with a lot of guys?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think with the idea of you sharing a significant part of your life, you sort of grow from being boys to sort of young men during that stage, and you see a lot of formative changes in a lot of the dudes that you play with. You do feel a little more comfortable going to them with stuff that you may be dealing with in, quote unquote adulthood or manhood or any of those types of things, because these people actually know you. Whereas maybe the people at your job, they don't know you, or maybe even sometimes your own family, your parents don't necessarily know you the way your roommate knows you. Your roommate's seen you do all kinds of things. And so I definitely think those relationships only deepen over time if you are able to sort of cross that barrier. And I definitely can speak for myself and a lot of my teammates. A lot of times when you get a chance to just be in a room with the guys or just talk with them, have conversations with them, you sort of feel as if that burden of just, everyday life stuff is a little bit lighter because these are folks that you relate to. And really quick, I want to give a shout out to, Savell Newton out there doing some of this work on a local level. Also, he's been really instrumental in the local community and really, really sort of tackles this idea. And this is one of his sort of passion projects. And a lot of teammates are facing these things, but it's a really interesting idea because one of the biggest problems is even though we're all together, a lot of times we don't feel like we can even talk to each other. We're together all the time on Twitter and Facebook and all the time, but can you actually have a real conversation with somebody? Those might be few and far between. So the idea that you have this sort of built-in group of guys that you can go to is maybe sort of like a little bit of a cheat code for former athletes.
And isn't that what the whole Marcus Lattimore role, now Connor Shaw role, was with the football team? Like, it helps to have an older guy that went through it too. Because I was just thinking about Marcus because Hayden's story, obviously thinking that he was going to be a professional baseball player. Well, Marcus Lattimore thought he was going to be in the NFL and was going to be in the NFL. Like, having to cope mentally with two just brutal injuries that ended your career abruptly, like having somebody like that as a sounding board, I think is also huge.
100%.
And I was thinking, Patrick, I thought you were going to go with maybe more of the new attitude or the messaging that this new coaching staff with Shane Beamer and company has put out there, especially with their strength coach and Luke Day, just about how you struggle together and you got to care about not the player, but the person behind the player. And once you figure that out, then you can accomplish more as players and coaches and the whole thing. And this coaching staff, it's one of the newest coaching staffs there is. So maybe that's just where coaching is going. Maybe that's where we're evolving to as a society. And maybe these guys would have done it several years ago as well. Maybe it's just their personal attitudes. I know our buddy Eric Kimry, who used to have this time slot as well, is very much about the spiritual nature of sports and getting into the psychology and the what is the other one I'm looking for now? Not psychology, but what is he into? The philosophy. That's the other P word where it doesn't sound like a P. the philosophy of life in general, and getting to that deeper level with other teammates, players, coaches on his coaching staff at Hammond, and I'm sure now at USC as well. So it's just a deeper way to see athletes, I think. And I think this will transition us to our next story perfectly because, Preston, you've been there. You've been a player. Today in Congress, Bernie Sanders and Chris Murphy co-authored, a couple of senators in Congress have co-authored a bill called the College Athletes' Right to Organize. And this goes right to the current conversation about not just name, image, and likeness. This takes it another level where athletes can create unions and be considered employees for their universities. We'll get into that discussion when we come back. I'm Tim Hill, helping to fill in for Pearson Fowler. We got Patrick Perrette holding things down, producing in the Herndon Chevrolet Studios in downtown Columbia. Just across the glass from Preston Thorne, former Gamecock, leading the charge today on the Extra Point here on 107.5 The Game.
More of the Extra Point coming
Clear.
next on 107.5 The Game.
All right, let's see if Preston can take off the headphones thing and talk in the camera phone for the commercial break. Nope, he's mesmerized. We got him. We got a screen on in the studio. I wonder what he's watching. Oh, he just figured out I'm talking about him. Nice. What you got on? You got SEC tournament baseball on again? Preston, you got SEC tournament baseball on in there?
I couldn't hear what you say.
Do you have SEC tournament baseball on in there?
Yeah, Mississippi State should be embarrassed the way they're losing to Tennessee again.
Nice. What's the score?
7-1 now.
Woo! They're
Oh,
clearly
yeah.
an embarrassing program.
I saw that there was controversy yesterday.
What, the old runner's interference thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a terrible rule. Just a bad rule.
What happened?
So tied at 2, bottom of the ninth, bases loaded. Tennessee's at the plate. Alabama's in the field. Chopper up the middle. Shortstop to second baseman. Second baseman turning the double play. Runner slides in. Throws late at first. Tennessee celebrates. They just won the game. But the umpire calls runner interference because I think the dude sliding in, his hand like smacks the second baseman. Runner interference. Weak. And so Alabama comes back to win the game in the 11th inning.
But it was the right call.
But by the rule, right? If there's any kind of interference at all, but I saw it on.
So you're
on
just
social
saying it's
media.
just a bad rule. It was the right call.
Chad Holbrook.
A bad rule.
Yeah, Chad Holbrook put it on social media. It's like, yeah, it's a bad rule. It protects the fielder. What about protecting the runner? You know, that's what I was always taught when I was turning a double play. You get down there and you throw through that dude, and he'll get out of the way or he won't, and and he'll remember it. Like, it doesn't make any sense. I get it. You're not supposed to come in cleats high and take a guy out, but that's not what happened here, and that's not usually when this gets called. It's so weird.
I'm gonna need to leave out after the next break.
Okay.
Whatever the next break is, 12, 40, 30, whatever the next break is.
It'll be 30-ish.
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
Okay. I'll let you take most of this segment then with your experience being an athlete about this bill, being possible considered to be.
I was trying to read up on the bill. I didn't get a chance to read the whole thing, but it seems interesting.
I at least read the article, so if I don't explain it, just ask me questions on the air, and we'll make sure everybody's on the same page.
Yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll ask you anything that I'm not clear on.
And if you don't ask me any questions, I'll consider myself having done a decent job at actually explaining it. So, Patrick, how would you answer the text from Patty saying, "How can I read Hayden Hurst's story other than on your Twitter feed? I don't have a Twitter account."
Did you retweet the CBS thing?
Yeah.
Just literally Google Hayden Hurst, and it'll be the first thing that pops up.
Well, Patty thinks it's a story she can read instead of one that she can watch.
A video? Yeah.
That's a problem.
All right, you're up.
So, are college athletes employees? Should they be considered as such? Should they be allowed to form unions? Some senators in Congress believe so, and a new bill has been introduced as of today. Bernie Sanders and Chris Murphy from Connecticut is where Murphy's from. Bernie Sanders, former presidential candidate there from Vermont. The College Athletes' Right to Organize bill is the name of this thing that would allow for conferences, I think, to be considered separate unions. This is different than the deal several years ago where it was Northwestern, basically just wanted to, as a team,
union, I think. And this goes against, I think it's 115 years, Preston, where the NCAA, the story goes that they created the term student athletes just for the reason that athletes would not be considered employees, and then everything that comes along with that. So my question to you as a former Gamecock football player, are college athletes employees?
I've been an athlete and I've been an employee, and I can't say that the expectations and responsibilities were very different in the two scenarios. As an athlete, you were required to show up at a certain time. You were required to show up for a certain period of time. You was required to perform a certain amount of duties. Very similar to what you was required to do as an employee. Now, there's all kinds of ways that you can twist and turn the argument, and every job has different requirements that some people are allowed to do things, some people aren't allowed to do things. But as a general idea of working, I felt like as an athlete that I was working the same I felt like as I was a teacher, the same I felt as a university employee. So, yeah, I would say yes, athletes are employees.
So now, having said that, do you want a bill like this to become law to where athletes will be able to unionize and move forward as employees and receive compensation? I'm sure it would go from there.
See, that's where it gets tricky. That's where it gets tricky, because I do believe in the value of an education from the university. And so the idea of unionizing as employees, I think, may shortchange the athletic or the educational opportunities that are available for students. So yes, I do think they act as employees, but the idea of unionizing to becoming an employee, I think that's a different idea. I think we're just changing fundamentally what the institution of college athletics is, and maybe that's necessary, maybe that's needed, but as employees, if they were to be certified as employees, then the current idea of what college athletics is would not exist anymore.
And that's basically what this bill is saying. There is a line in here from another senator, I believe it is. I'm trying to get through all this stuff in here. I believe a former volleyball player at Georgetown. It's time to finally end amateurism as we know it, is the quote. And then another quote in here from Murphy, one of those co-authors, is big time college sports haven't been amateur for a long time. Do you feel that way? Because I've always felt here, certainly in the last couple of decades, since I was at the University of South Carolina and got out in 2000. So I've been out of college a couple of decades. Even at my time there, certainly felt like certain sports were not amateurs. Certain revenue generating sports like college football, like basketball, not amateur sports because of everything involved there. And then I would take it even further. I would say the only real amateur sports right now in college is Division III, or even a lower level than that, I guess NAIA, where you're not getting a scholarship. To me, everything else, to call it amateur athletics it's always been very confusing to me with all the money that's involved.
Yeah, so with all the money that's involved, it definitely muddies the water as far as what is amateurism. I mean, the idea of amateurism definitely protects the institutions and the universities from having to deal with the rights and responsibilities that an employer would have. So I think, is it amateurism because they're just simply not being paid as professionals? Yes, by the letter of the law, but in a lot of capacities, the players in these programs are acting in a professional capacity. Now, I will also say that when I know guys that go on to go to the NFL with the pros, they say, "Oh no, we were being treated one way, but there's a different level of professionalism in the NFL." And I'm not sure if we want that standard to be in college athletics either. So yes, I do think college athletes act in a professional capacity, but they don't get treated the same way professional NFL guys get treated, or in other revenue-generating leagues.
Interested in hearing your thoughts on this at 803-404-6100. Alan just hit us up and says, then your scholarship should be treated as income, and the athlete should pay taxes on that income. Careful what you ask for. Another part of this bill, again, called the College Athletes' Right to Organize, is that the tax status doesn't change. And to me, then I feel like that I think we see this all the time, right? When you're in a negotiation, you ask for everything off the top, right? Let's do everything here. Give it all to me, knowing that you're not going to get it all, and you're going to end up having to compromise and meet somewhere in the middle. So I'm not surprised that this bill is asking for the current scholarship status from being tax exempt to remain that way. But I think that's absolutely correct where Alan's coming from. Hey, I hear you. You want to be an employee. You want to have those rights. Yep. But also, when you're an employee, you have the obligation to pay taxes on this thing. I don't think you can have it both ways like this bill is asking. I think they fully understand that the odds of getting all of that and getting that approved and run right through Congress right now is pretty slim to none. And
Well,
I think that's where we would have a big problem with it as fans, wouldn't we? If it goes from 0 to 100 miles an hour just like that. That's how I would see it anyway. How do you go all this time as I think I identify from a fan standpoint to college athletics more than I do to pros because of the love of the game, because I feel like there is that attachment that you don't get when you're a pro, when you turn pro, when you're a professional athlete. There is some of that romantic notion involved, right, of doing it for the love of the game, and you're not getting paid a huge paycheck to be out there. You're just doing it because you love it. I identify with that, and I think it would swing me probably the other way if the entirety of this bill gets passed there. Preston, didn't mean to interrupt you.
no, that's a really good point. My counterpoint would be that, I don't know when people stop playing for the love of the game or start playing for the love of the game. I mean, when you look at high school athletics and travel ball and soccer clubs and AAU, I mean, that's not playing for the love of the game. A lot of those teams are playing to get somewhere for a destination, for a scholarship or some things like that. So that's a kind of a muddy line of when do these kids, actually play for the love of the game? I don't know. But also the idea that it's a threat for these kids to have to pay taxes on their scholarship. Okay, fine, no problem. Give me the money and I'll pay taxes on it just like anybody else. That's not an issue. It shouldn't be okay, buddy. Now are you the IRS or something? Everybody, there's all kinds of rules and laws and all kinds of companies that find tax loopholes to figure out ways to not pay taxes. So let's not act like that's a huge undertaking. Fine, if they had to get paid taxes, no problem. Some people might elect to pay taxes on having something instead of not having anything and not having a choice. So, that's all part of the conversation. But it's not a threat that they would have to pay taxes. That's just to respond directly to anybody that would possibly think like that.
Eric is one of those people, I think it sounds like, from the text line. He says college athletes as employees is a horrible idea. The unintended consequences have most likely not been considered. For example, I'm sure the cost for tuition and housing will now be considered compensation, taxable, most likely. Will their parents no longer be eligible to claim them as dependents? Eric, that doesn't sound like horrible things. I'm with you on that one, Preston. Like, if you're making money,
if they're making enough money compared to their market worth, then they should be able to pay for the accommodations that they can afford, just like any other normal employee. And if the organization wants to compensate them or give them certain perks for their jobs, then the organization would be able to do that too. It's no different than, I don't know, Google setting up their employees with free cars or break rooms with unlimited snacks. I don't know. This happened. Let's not be dunce about this and act like there's now all kinds of flexible employment agreements around the country that could be offered to these folks if this was the case. Now, I'm not saying I'm on board with this, but let's not be obtuse about the ways that this could get done.
Oh, obtuse. Well done. Take me back to Shawshank Redemption. Well played, Preston Thorne. My question to you, and I know you need to dip out a little bit early today, Preston, so let's leave you with this.
Okay.
To me, the main problem with this comes because not all athletes are created equal. And I shouldn't even say athletes. I should say college sports. And it's not even close to not all college sports. It's that college football and men's college basketball, they reside in a different space than any other sport out there. Those athletes generate so much more money than any other sport out there that I don't know how you legislate that. If I'm a basketball player or if you're a football player and then you're getting some money you're considered an employee, you get to unionize the whole thing, and you're having a meeting with a cross country runner or something that's getting the exact same amount of money. I mean, that seems to me to be a breeding ground for a lot of issues that while everybody's kind of in the same boat right now, and it's kind of unfair to begin with. It's already unfair that players aren't getting paid. I don't see how it's that much more fair that you would pay everybody across the board as opposed to the specific sports who are bringing in the money.
That's a great question. And you're posing a lot of great questions. And no, I don't think that would be equal because, again, I think we're trying to apply these different market principles, right? So we're trying to have capitalism, but we're trying to make sure everybody gets a fair shake, but we're trying to make sure education. And that's just not how this system is designed. The system that we currently have is a mishmash of all these things that we have up to this point, and we're trying to basically make a square peg in a round hole. And I'm just not sure that's going to happen. It's not going to work. I think we're trying to find these creative ways, but also, the NCAA has had, did you say 100 years since they created the term student athlete? They've had a long time to try and figure this out. And now there's a little bit of pressure, and all of a sudden there's some urgency to this step. So again, put a bunch of smart people in a room that have the athlete's interests in heart, and let them figure it out. But this is going to be very interesting as it bodes for college athletics because the system as it currently set up is even set up so that these income generating sports sort of pay for the rest of these programs as it is. And you can get all kinds of weird sideways ways. So listen, I'm here for unintended consequences because we're stirring up the hornet's nest, and let's see how it shakes out.
It's interesting stuff for sure. New bill introduced in Congress today to allow unions for NCAA athletes and to declare them as employees in that amateurism as we have known it for the 115 years that the NCAA has been in existence. Preston Thorne with his thoughts as a former Gamecock football player. More of your thoughts as we continue to roll on this afternoon. 803-404-6100 is the number. You can call or text. It's the Extra Point here on 107.5 The Game.
More of the Extra Point coming next on 107.5 The Game.
Preston. See you, man. Have a good one. Good luck with Bill tomorrow.
Can you hear me?
Sorry, I just popped
Appreciate
on
it.
speaker. All right,
Man, I will. Are you gonna be in tomorrow? Are y'all gonna be in tomorrow?
Bill's got you tomorrow.
Cool. All right.
Yep. All right. See you soon.
Even better.
All right, we'll take Preston out of there. There we go.
Bad signal in the studio.
Always is. Weird.
All right, what do we get into next?
We'll bat this around a little bit more unless you got something else you want to hop onto.
Nope.
You get into the social media stuff with Koepka and DeChambeau yesterday?
We talked about it a little bit, yeah.
Tom Brady.
We had to give Preston the full background.
So help me out. Did you see a fan? Is there even video of a fan dumping popcorn on Russell Westbrook?
Yeah.
How's it look? Bad?
Yeah, I mean, it's
What you would expect with popcorn on somebody's head?
I don't know if he fouled out or what, but he was walking to the locker room by himself, and you can see the popcorn get dumped, and then he starts freaking out, and security just calms him down and takes him out.
So was it like from up above in the tunnel, or was it just?
Yeah, it was like whoever had the seats right above the entry to the tunnel.
Gotcha.
And there's a video of what appears to be someone spitting at Trae Young yesterday in MSG.
Cheers. Right, about the bacon, Craig. Patrick, what's your sports analogy? Microwave bacon is like what?
In sports, it's like a 60-game MLB season.
That's
rushed. It's rushed. It's not that good, but it's still okay. It's still sports.
Well done, Harry. No, we're not talking about lacrosse Final Four.
I'm pumped for that. It's gonna be a great day on Saturday. 2:30,
Get
Maryland Duke.
Get your own network.
Monday, 2:30, national championship. You're up.
Hope your Thursday afternoon's off to a good start here. Tim Hill helping to fill in for Pearson Fowler. Patrick Perrette alongside, producing from the Herndon Chevrolet Studios in downtown Columbia. 803-404-6100, where a bunch of you have weighed in on this issue of a new bill introduced in Congress, co-sponsored, I guess, by, let me get the names up again. I remember Bernie Sanders. Chris Murphy is the other one, a senator from Connecticut who has co-authored this thing. The comment I mentioned earlier, there's a companion bill over in the House of Representatives, and this is right up Jay Phillips's alley, by the way. A combination of politics and sports, way out of my depths. I'm more to, hey, which way did the ball bounce last night? Can you believe that? But the other Congresswoman that I mentioned a quote from a little bit earlier on was Lori Trahan out of Massachusetts. She's the one that said it's time to finally end amateurism as we know it. That's where I'm torn on this thing, Patrick, is so this bill is out there to try to get more of the pie for the athletes. I'm for more of the pie. I think name, image, and likeness is a great middle ground for this.
So wait, is this in addition to?
Yeah, this has nothing to do with name, image, and likeness. Nothing. This is completely separate, and this is completely way over the top of that, right? This is being able to be considered as an employee, basically ending that amateurism, just like I said there, and then not only when you're considered an employee, then organized into unions and collectively bargaining and all of that stuff. So this would be taking it, several steps beyond where we sit right now, because name, image, likeness is going to happen. And political pressure has led to that. There's no doubt about it, right? And don't get me wrong. I am not for just sitting there and saying, hey, NCAA, you guys handle this, because they haven't done anything. And they've shown, instead of being the adults in the room and doing what's best for student athletes over their 115 years existence, they have shown time after time that they're just going to rake in the money. And they ain't giving any of it away until they absolutely have to, which is where we have finally gotten to in this country, but only after political pressure. And it's a sad, sad day when the politicians have to be the one doing the right thing in sports. That's my little soapbox rant on that. But this one takes it way too far, in my opinion. Let's go one step at a time here. We have no idea how this name, image, likeness thing is going to work out to begin with right now. I think we've moved in the right direction. Now, what athletes get in 2021 is a lot better than what Preston got back in his day in the early 2000s. The stipends, what do they call this thing? I forget what it's called. It's another political statements. It's the I'll get to it here. The cost of attendance stipends, right? The unlimited meals now, the way that the athlete has gained some more of the pie here in the last few years. That's a good thing. Name, image, likeness to me is an ultimate American type of value thing that we're all entitled to. Not athlete. Everybody should be entitled to themselves and how they're used in that way. And to have been made money off of in that way for so long, not cool. Not cool, NCAA. And I feel like that's been shut down at least. So there will be more of the pie headed their way. But now this thing, and the main problem that I mentioned, Patrick, I know you're a lacrosse guy and you want to talk about the final.
But that's included, right? Lacrosse players would be included in this?
Yeah, it's all
like
of
anyone who gets a scholarship.
NCAA athletes is how I read this thing.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing on scholarship anyway.
Well, that's what it's like. Yeah, the part that I read was anyone who basically receives any compensation for their athletic ability through scholarship. But I mean,
or other means.
But basketball and football do full scholarships, so that's not exactly the same thing as a baseball or lacrosse player. Lacrosse, they have 12.5 scholarships, and they can say, "Hey, we'll give you $10,000. We'll give you like a quarter of a scholarship." So, like, why would that person? How are they in a bargaining position to be unionizing and?
Right. Well, but that to me is
make any sense.
That's the lowest part of the argument. The biggest part of the argument is how much money does your sport generate?
Yeah,
if your sport doesn't generate any money, you don't deserve any money. That's pretty simple to me. If we're going to, if we want to reinforce some like professional values, how about simple economics? And that's where this one doesn't make any sense to me at all. Why are you going to take all the money and then redistribute it that way? That's not how our country works, by and large. I don't think that's how the NCAA should work. And it's the main problem I have, I guess, with this deal. Now, if you wanted to tell me that athletes in money-generating sports will now be able to earn a certain amount of that profit that the NCAA is just pocketing themselves, and I'm all for that, and they figure it out. And there's going to be unfairness, and then people at school are going to say the soccer players are going to be mad at the football players, the whole thing. And figure out how to make more money, right?
They won't be either.
Figure out how to market that sport better. That's all. And guess what? The NCAA might find that the athletes have good ideas, and they need to listen to the athletes. Maybe change the rules or market things differently, or maybe you can grow the game that way. Seems an odd time to put this out there. I'm politically illiterate, basically, so maybe I'm missing something here as to why the timing of this thing. Maybe it's just to present the power structure that there's being more of a squeeze put on the NCAA, and then some of these senators or congressmen and women who have introduced this bill will start congratulating themselves once name, image, and likeness gets done by the NCAA across the board, which it really needs to here very soon. Otherwise, we're in a massive mess where different states have different rules and different. We already saw that weird thing in Georgia that we talked about, right, Patrick, where 75% of the name, image, likeness money can be taken by Georgia or Georgia Tech and then bought and redistributed to everybody else. It's another massively.
They do need to be standardized, because even in, I don't know, it's just weird when things are state by state. Like even just right now, the fact that when you play a home and away series in basketball or hockey, like one home team can have a fully packed arena and the other can be empty because of state rules. So now if you transition that to, well, if you go to a university in this state, you can get paid, in this one you can't. Like, that is just completely unfair.
Danny B. Gentlemen, so now we interrupt the college football season when unionized players strike because they dislike the coach or the color of their school uniforms. Now, non-playing athletes can leave a team, draw enhanced unemployment. Here come the politics in college sports. I'm done. Yeah, Danny, I don't think you have to worry. I don't think this is going to pass. I don't think it's going to go very far. I think this is what politics is to a large degree. A lot of yapping and for nothing. But it's certainly an interesting idea and a concept out there, and there are nuances to the discussion. That's why I'm extra glad we had Preston in here to speak on it from the student athlete's perspective, and will be interesting to keep an eye on for sure as it moves forward. And Hayden Hurst on CBS this morning, if you missed that recap what that story is, let you know how you can check it out as well. 803-404-6100. If you would like to join this show, you can call or text that same number. Up and rolling on that Facebook, YouTube Live, on Twitter as well. The station handle at 1075 The Game. When you catch the last few minutes of the live video stream. Thanks for checking out the Extra Point here on 1075 The Game.
Clear. I don't really understand Lee's point unless his kid plays soccer in college.
How many times have we said lacrosse this morning already?
Yeah, I mean, what? And what is his point? That we're the reason that
Yes.
soccer players aren't being paid?
Only football, baseball, and basketball are popular.
I don't even really understand where that train of thought came from, though. Like, we didn't put down the other sports.
Oh, we mentioned, no, they don't make money. Totally our fault. How about Thomas from Camden? I think there should be a limit on the amount of 4- and 5-star players a school can have to equalize sports for a better game.
I think it's funny when the conversations start and then, like, you start proposing ideas and then realize that, oh, wait, this is just pro sports now. Like, you should be able to trade 4- and 5-star players, too. You should be able to – okay, well – Does Columbia International have a baseball team?
They just won the national championship, sir,
In what?
in their first year.
In what?
There's like an extra C. I think it's like the NCCAA. Check it out. Let's see.
I don't know the first thing about Columbia International University. I don't know where it is. I don't know what it is.
It's Monticello Road, I think, extended. And NCCAA is the National Christian College Athletic Association.
I mean, the first picture I see when I Google Columbia International University, it looks like an apartment complex that I've probably driven by and didn't know it was a college.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's basically been a place where you go to train to be a minister. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Like Mount St. Mary's.
Sounds good. I'll go with that.
But they have sports.
They do. But a baseball team for the first time this year. Let's send the link to this Patty here to see if she can run.
All right. It's 6 miles and 18 minutes away, York. Seven and a half miles. Not 2 miles.
What is?
York said it's 2 miles from the station.
Huh, you told him, though, 6 miles. Yeah.
Well, it's a place I never go there. Like, I live downtown and I come here. Like, the only place I drive to is the airport. I stay in my own little downtown bubble. All right. You're up.
Yeah, Thursday afternoon. You're getting there. Tim Hill in for Pearson Fowler this afternoon. Patrick Perrette as well, pushing the buttons, producing from the downtown Herndon Chevrolet studios.
Probably the last couple hours for most people's week here. I bet you most people are taking off tomorrow. I think it's going to be slow. The Friday before Memorial Day, I feel like it's a big day for, like, PTO.
PTO, help me out with that.
Like paid time off. I know all of my friends are down in Charleston. They all just took their paid days so they can have a 4-day weekend instead of a 3-day weekend.
That's getting greedy, isn't it? Think about that.
Yeah, but the wraparound holidays when you already have a day off, a company day off, just take your own personal day and make a full vacation out of it.
I got no problem with that. Hayden Hurst on CBS this morning, the former Gamecock, now Atlanta Falcon tight end, telling his story and doing it in a different way than has been done before. Retweeting the link in case you have not checked out the video. It's about a 7-minute story, and it's him writing a letter to his younger self 10 years ago and just basically going through his story. Nothing necessarily new that we haven't heard, just told in a little different way. How he's gone. He went from one of the best high school pitchers in the country and a minor league prospect that did not work out with the Pittsburgh Pirates, walked on South Carolina football, survived a suicide attempt, and has now turned things around, obviously being a first-round NFL draft pick, Baltimore Ravens, and then gone on with the Atlanta Falcons and created a foundation along with the help of his mom to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars for mental health. And crazy to, in my lifetime, to think how far the public perception has changed, or the conversation has changed, I guess, among tough guys. Like you were saying, Patrick, earlier on, especially football guys who are supposed to be the strong, silent type for someone like Hayden Hurst and obviously Ryan Helinski and the Helinski's Hope Foundation. Very similar type message to put out there, and vulnerability and sharing the story and coming through tragedy. It's impressive for sure in a lot of different ways.
I also think it's impressive how everyone has accepted it. Like I don't think there's been any pushback or anything like that. I think everyone is kind of, it's one of those rare situations where we all agree, like, this is great. Like, I wish this had happened sooner. It probably would have helped a lot of people. But yeah, I mean, Ryan Helinski was probably the loudest voice in college football for that type of stuff. And him and Hayden Hurst being on the same campus at the same time, or not at the same time, but same school and talking together and kind of putting their heads together and helping out. It's awesome in a sport where they literally nickname the guys gladiators. It's good to be vulnerable.
LeVar hits us up on the YouTube live stream this afternoon. Doesn't the SEC take in all the money and pull it together, redistribute to all schools evenly? It definitely does do that from the television standpoint. The network deals with ESPN and the SEC network. That's how it redistributes a bunch of money. The bowl game money, I think, goes in that pool as well. Specific athletics departments distribute that thing evenly. But that's where the concept comes that basketball and football basically pay for all the sports, all the other sports. And that's why this new bill introduced today in Congress by Bernie Sanders and Chris Murphy doesn't make much sense to me, because it doesn't address that massive inequality between the value of a football or men's basketball player and the value of other athletes out there. And league, as a confused, or I'm not sure where he's going with this. He says, we only talk about football, baseball, and basketball. Why don't you all address the great things other sports do that would help them to gain more views? We didn't create the money generating sports. We talk about them most often because that's what is most attended. And that's simple. We certainly do give some attention to other sports as well. Don't mean to come across as the perfect 107.5, as Lee referenced on the text line there. But happy to hear your opinion there. Yeah, only Skip Bayless was the only guy to come out.
Yeah, that's a great one. I totally forgot about that.
Well done, Dave. Thanks for putting that out there. He says that's because Skip Bayless is Skip Bayless. And the latest thing that happens on his show is Shannon Sharp. And
the NFL is going to own his show in a couple days, so it doesn't really matter.
Oh, you're still on that rant, are you? Good to talk to you, Patrick. Thanks for pushing the buttons there and producing. Thanks for holding it down this afternoon, filling in for Pearson Fowler. Have you back in the morning? You up for it?
I'm ready. I've missed it.
Right. Halftime show coming up next here on 107.5.
All right. One down.
Sorry, man, I missed that. Just turn my speaker off.
Said one down.
Yeah, nice work, man. Anything you need from me before I sign this sucker off?
I don't think so. There's nothing Saturday. There's nothing this weekend, right?
Yep, you're clear, man. Let me go ahead and sign off on the live stream. Anthony, thanks, man. Perry, good to see you. John, York, LeVar, appreciate it. See you guys.